Warning. This podcast features the truth about owning and operating mobile home parks. The following program is not designed to be sexy. It will not hype you up on MHPs. Rather, this is a raw take on this industry and how you find your own path to success. Welcome to MHP IRL, Mobile Home Parks in Real Life, with your host, Ryan Norris.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce my friend, former mentee, and inspirational story, Shawn Dwyer. Shawn's outside of Philadelphia, and I remember, Shawn, when you and I met via phone, I liked you instantly because we just shared so many common books that we loved and philosophies that we loved, and we had a lot in common, but we had different constraints. So at the time we met, I think my son had just been born, and you obviously have kids and a career and family, and you were a similar person at a different point in your life.
Sure.
And the reason why I'm excited to get you on, and why I think the audience is really going to appreciate your story, is because for everyone who's heard the Ian and Ryan moving into a mobile home, chasing our dreams story and been like, that's awesome, there's at least one more person like you who are like, that's great, but I can't do that. So everybody, meet Shawn Dwyer. Shawn, tell everybody a little bit about you.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. So appreciate it. So yeah, I've gotten a little bit of a different way into the mobile home park space than maybe some of others. So I started out, traditional path, high school, college, full-time career at a Fortune top 30 company. Kind of rose through the ranks there for managers, directors, through various positions. I lead a team of a little over 40 people today across multiple states, across 7 different facilities. So just a really large scope of work. And over the course of time, some things can happen, in your personal life where you just change a little bit perspective on some things. So where maybe early in my career, it was like crazy hard driven. Now maybe a little bit more family focused, where before I would spend 16, 20 hours a day at work working on different models for various data points, where now I still work a ton in my day job, but I'm trying to focus a little bit more family because something changed in my personal life. Was going through multiple things back in '08, big stock market crash. COVID happened, another big stock market crash. When you're looking at what you're doing for retirement and what you're looking to do for planning, all of a sudden you have 30% of your worth and net worth all of a sudden gets cut by a third, or all of your net worth is in 401ks or stocks, and all of a sudden it's wiped out by a third over a year, multiple years, or in the case of COVID, over multiple months. So I said, all right, there has to be something different out there that I can do. So that's why I started doing a lot of reading, a lot of research, and just looking at different avenues to diversify myself for future retirement, for the future me, 30, 40 years from now.
One story you told, which I may never forget, is, so for those who don't know, Shawn interviews a lot of people, and in his career has had to hire a lot of people. And I believe this was our first phone call. You told me a story about an older gentleman in his 60s who was a computer programmer who knew how to code a certain language that is now obsolete. And now this gentleman, unfortunately, is effectively unemployable. And in your 60s, when you had a really healthy salary because you were in very high demand for a very niche skill set, but now that skill set's irrelevant and that's all you got, and you're used to a high salary and middle class, upper middle class lifestyle, and now all of a sudden you're irrelevant. That it hits right at home. And I remember you saying that again. I think it was our first phone call, if not one of our first, and you were like, I can't ever be that guy. For not just for selfish reasons, but also for my family.
Yeah. Yeah, I've learned through my parents, through just other older relatives, that when they get to a certain point in their career, they're just really concerned about what they're going to do for jobs if they lose it. So they're always very concerned about losing that one specific job. So just like little bits and pieces I've taken from people over the course of time. And that's one thing that I always was really concerned about. So for me, I've always been pretty driven to try to keep as many doors open as I can with, new skills, new technologies, new careers, new, like, what do they call it? Like certifications, degrees, whatever, masters, just trying to keep everything open for all my options because I didn't want to be pigeonholed. So yeah, I would have interview a lot of contractors or for contractor positions, for full-time positions. And these folks were great. They either got laid off from their previous position or good recommendations from people. But when you start looking at their skill sets and what they brought to the table for the specific job that I was looking for, they might be great folks and great people, but the technologies that they knew were 15, 20 years old and they were popular back then and they were great for that team or great for that company. But it just did not work for what we were looking for that new position. And to bring someone on at the salary that they were looking for and demand it based on their previous experience, it just didn't warrant, hiring that person on and trying to upskill them to that new technology or new role that we were looking for.
This is why we're friends. I just love listening to how you're just constantly looking to better yourself. And I find it interesting. It sounds like your why for that is more of a protective. It's coming from more of a protective, like I need to protect my family. I need to protect my income because of obsolescence for various skill sets. And you've seen in your time how that can and does happen. I mean, that's happening all over the Midwest with automation.
Sure.
And that was one main reason why you came in to the mentorship program and why mobile home parks obviously caught your attention. And you bring up another great point, which is you have all this money in the stock market and all of a sudden something crazy in the world out of your control happens and it deletes a third of your net worth. It's a lot of things out of your control. You can't control the stock market. You can't control obsolescence of a skill set. But what you realize through reading and bettering yourself, Shawn, is you can control, at least more so than an investment in the stock market, you can control commercial real estate, multifamily real estate. So why don't we kind of talk about, so now we've talked about kind of who you are, how you've logicked your way into real estate. Why don't we take a second to talk about how, maybe not necessarily how you found mobile home parks, but what you went through to find your way into mobile home parks beyond just listening to podcasts, talking about it. Like, you are a mobile home park owner now. Let's talk about your journey.
Mid-September.
Let's talk about, and by the way, this is recorded in late November 2022. So it's been almost a quarter. Let's talk about your journey from, okay, I realize I'm trying to diversify my income, if you will, to protect, I don't want to be obsolete. I don't want to leave my family in a bad spot or be in a bad spot, especially as I grow older. So we found our way into real estate. How did you find your way into mobile home parks?
Sure. So much like this podcast, it got started by just looking through Facebook groups, reading books, listening to podcasts, and just trying to consume as much content as I could, listening at like 1.3, 1.4 speed, skipping all like the dead air of stuff and just trying to plow through as much material as I could. So just continuing to network. I've gone to like local meetup groups pre-COVID, and now they're starting to pick up again, kind of post-COVID world. So just trying to network with as many people as we could. So as with a lot of people, I started with Kevin and Charles' podcast from back in 2016, 2017. One thing that happened to me in 2018, 2019, unfortunately, my mom passed away. So I had a little bit of money coming in from when we renovated and fixed up and sold her house. So listening to the podcast, I was like, oh, cool. I have a little bit of money now that I can kind of squirrel away and start investing. These mobile home parks seem like they're pretty good investment vehicles. Why don't I go and start looking at them? And I don't know what happened between 2017, 2018 from the pricing to 2020 when I first started working with you on the mentorship, but wow, prices have exploded in that 2 or 3 year time period.
Yeah, and they're in a lull right now because of interest rate hikes, but about everybody I talk to are basically just taking this time right now while things slow down a little bit as the Fed is, that's their desire, right? To lock and load to hit the ground running when we come out of this. So in other words, I don't think they're going back down. If they're going back down, it's a temporary adjustment. It's just going to go up from here in terms of pricing. But you're right. When I got started in 2015, pricing was completely different. And I cringe looking at some deals I passed on way back when.
Sure.
But anyways, so this is a timeline, right? So 2018 plus or minus, you hear about the idea, you start listening to my friend Kevin and Charles to put on a great podcast. I'm also a disciple of their podcast, was a big fan of it while they were churning it out. And yeah, look, then it takes a couple years to actually get started. And it wasn't really then, because this recording is in 2022. So it took you really 2 years from when you said, I'm going to do this. Let's spend some time talking about why it took 2 years, for better or worse. And by the way, I want to preface this by saying I started in 2015. I bought my first in late 2016, and I didn't go full time until I was at my 2-year anniversary. So that's about right. The difference is I quit my job and moved into a mobile home. So talk to me about those 2 years. So 2020 through obviously 2022.
Sure. So honestly, first I got started, I saw a post that you had on Facebook that yourself and Ian were starting a mentorship group, a mentee group. So I said, great, this is a way for me to accelerate my growth. And really, as a kid, I used to play video games. So it was a way for me to just like level up, right? So I could read a bunch of books, I can listen to podcasts, I can look at broker deals, but am I going to really execute on anything? Probably not, right? I'm not going to start sending out LOIs when I don't have necessarily the funding, the experience, the friends and family to say, hey, why don't you lend me a couple $1 million to go buy a mobile home park? They like look at you funny, like you're buying what? Like, why are you doing this? They're almost trying to console you, right? So, where I started with you, it was really just learning the underwriting, trying to find that strategy on what ultimately you were looking to get to, and then seeing how mobile home parks, commercial real estate, other versions of real estate are out there that can help you get where you want to go. So for me, it was really setting up that strategy piece and then working with you and Ian to really identify what are the gaps, right? So there's only so much time in a day, right? You said you moved into a mobile home park, quit your job, right? So you could be 100% focused on that thing, 10, 15, 20 hours a day, cold calling, networking, getting that stuff up and running. I don't have that capability, right? So I have family, I have an established, career that I'm currently growing and developing. I just don't have those hours in the day. So for me, it was a lot of nights, weekends, cold calling, networking, sending out mailers, working with brokers, setting up just little informal meetings like this as part of a SECO event that I attended virtually periodically throughout the given week, and sunk up with people afterwards for anyone that was part of a discussion, led a meeting, gave a presentation. Anyone who was on that list for the weeks and months afterwards, I just reached out to on LinkedIn or within the apps within SECO and just tried to set up some time with them just to, again, see what their experience was, let them know what I do, what I can bring to the table, just in case they find any opportunities they want to partner with. At least they know who I am. So that's kind of the way that I established myself for the first, say, 3 to 6 months, and then just kind of kept at it. Not at a daily basis, to be honest with you. I don't like cold calling. I hated it. So it would be more of a couple hours at night here, a weekend there, connecting with a park owner occasionally, driving to their site or location on the weekends, just trying to, again, network with them, talking with brokers, joining state organizations to try to get a hold of people and get names and numbers and talk to people who are currently in the space. So it took a long time.
I actually, believe it or not, have your mentorship Google Sheet pulled up right now, and I forgot this, but the first lesson that I had for you was network before you need it. And it is, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a smile on my face right now listening to you say all this stuff, because boy, did you ever embody that. I mean, you
Yeah.
picked that football up and just ran with it,
Yeah.
and it was necessity too. And I remember you being at Seco, which was great. You met a bunch of folks there too. And yeah, man, I feel like you told me you sent out a bunch of mailers like way back in the day. I don't even think they were mobile home park mailers. I think they were single family home mailers. And you said you got a call back on one of the mailers and you were so nervous you didn't even call it back.
Yeah, yeah. The person, I called them back eventually, and they wanted like some insane amount.
Yeah.
So I was just like, all right, I don't know what to do from here. So like dead lead. So yeah, I've done that stuff, unfortunately. But yeah, I've never been in sales. I've always just been in network engineering and IT. So I just had to learn some technologies, kind of master it and implement it, as opposed to getting folks to, know, like, and trust you.
Yeah, man, I remember looking at your notes now, how much it was so obvious you needed to cold call, and it was obvious that we needed to spend time together getting better at it. And I remember, man, you and I used to have calls when I was driving all the way out to Knoxville, Tennessee from Charlotte. So I'd be like, dude, you're doing me a favor. I'm bored. The Tennessee is gorgeous, by the way, but like it's just dead air time. So let's chat through this. And it was fish out of water for you, cold calling,
Sure.
because it's just so not your skill set and not kind of where you want to be. But what I admired about you, Shawn, is that you took the time to learn it and you took the time to force yourself through it. And you are probably still shocked to this day to know that even when I cold call, I'm nervous doing it. We all do.
Sure.
We all get nervous picking up the phone at times. And like I've told you many times, man, it's just, you have to psychologically convince yourself to keep picking up the phone, which you did.
Yep.
And you've done a really, really good job building rapport. One story I really, really want you to tell is the chemo jacket story.
Sure. Yeah, so this one hit a little bit to home. So like I mentioned earlier, a couple years ago, my mom got diagnosed with appendix cancer, like one of like the rarest forms in the country. And she was going through chemo treatments, and it's not very pleasant. You're kind of hooked up to all these IVs, and you're wearing, blankets, but you can't really get comfy because there's all these IVs and stuff. And, so we had a close family friend, extended family member, purchase a chemo jacket for her, and she thought it was like the coolest gift ever because they have little zippers and you can kind of hook up all your IVs and you can stay warm for it. So part of the cold calling, I got to know one owner in the Mid-Atlantic area, and he let me know that he's going to be putting on pause a little bit for selling his park just because his wife was dealing with some medical issues. He let me know that it was cancer, and kind of reading a lot of books, they always say, whatever you put out into the world, you'll get it back tenfold. I wasn't really looking for anything. I was just more looking just to kind of do something good for this guy, put out some good vibes into the world. So that way, maybe eventually 5, 10, 15 years down the line, when I continue cold calling, something good will come back to me. So, I talked it over with my wife. I was like, should I do this? It's like pretty personable. So what I did is I didn't know like size of his wife. So I just got her like a medium or large jacket. So I went on one of the sites that sold them, and I just ordered one and I just sent it to his office. He called me a couple days later when it got there. He was so upset because no one at his office, like no one, his family or friends, didn't know that she was going to be going through these treatment stuff. And I felt so terrible. So I said, I apologize. It was supposed to be in like some privacy packaging. Shouldn't have had like the company name on it. It's like, nobody knows that she's going through all this stuff. I was like, look, you can just tell her it's from you. I don't want recognition for it. Just tell her it's from you. I hope everything goes well for you and your family. Let's stay in contact. Sincerely, best of luck. I didn't have any ill will or intentions to, let other people know what was going on in your life. So yeah, it's one of the like weird networking things I did. Like I said, I wasn't trying to get in good with this guy. It just felt like the right thing to do.
So please clarify, did he like the gift or did he hate it?
He did. He thought it was great, but at the same time, like nobody knew in his life. So he was like really sad and upset that I guess people in his office saw, like, the I don't want to say the name of the company or anything that was coming in the packaging, but like it said like cancer all over it. So he was pretty upset, like sad upset that someone gave him this gift, but also that others in the office might not like know what was going on. I told him just say it's for another family friend or a relative or someone distant that you just ordered it for. So I was trying to like give him some feedback on like what to say so to not be upset about it.
And to clarify, he eventually liked this gift.
He did, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so just to recap here, it was really embarrassing up front because you kind of outed him, but
Yeah.
thankfully you worked through it together, and eventually he was appreciative.
Yeah, he was very, very appreciative. But when he first called me, he was, really sad, crying on the phone. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm sorry.
Look, the point of the matter is you eventually put that mobile home park under contract.
I did. Yeah, it was a couple months later after everything kind of settled down. Put it under contract. One thing led to another. It had some zoning and utility issues, so we weren't able to move forward with it. But yeah, we eventually did put that one under contract.
That, I think, is the cool part of this story. So now that I own as many mobile home parks as I own, my phone rings off the hook. By the way, I don't get spared over Thanksgiving.
Ugh.
Can explain through experience because we're just coming out of Thanksgiving, and I get texts all the time, automated texts that they're clearly meant to be personal, but they're clearly also coded for a computer program because they pull my LLC and say, "Hey, Mr. Naris LLC, how are you?" And you're like, "Did you even stop to read this before you hit send?" And people ask me all the time, they're like, "Man, how can you cold call better when everyone in the world is cold calling and there's mail all the time?" I still get mailers all the time. My phone rings off the hook. People are obnoxious when they cold call. And what I love about the chemo jacket story is it's different and fair. Maybe there was a better way to deliver it other than to his office
Sure.
and accidentally outing him. A little secret he didn't want to tell folks. But the bigger point of that story is he eventually called you and you eventually put it under contract. And sure, maybe it didn't work out, but imagine if it had. The end of that story would have been, I did something different, which was I called this man. I listened to him. I did something not expecting anything in return, which, by the way, is my mantra. If I give 99 things away and only get one thing in return, I agree with you. That one thing in return makes all those other 99 things I gave away for free all worth it in the end. All
Absolutely.
worth it in the end. And I could not agree more that that's why I do this podcast. I want to put out good things into the world, if nothing else, just because I want the world to be a better place. And what you did, again, the story I want to paint here, Shawn, is that you're an introvert. You're not a natural salesperson. You hate it. You did for a long time. You're scared of it.
Still do.
To a certain degree. Still do. And you had to force yourself to do something you didn't want to do. In time, you didn't want to do it, right? Because you have a really demanding job with dozens and dozens of people that report to you. And you have kids. You have your mother and what she had to go through. You had all of that on your plate and you still found the time to do it. You had every excuse in the world and you still found the time to do it, and you were good at it. You were good at it. The fact that you listened, you got a man on the phone, you got him to explain this to you. You went so far as to provide him with quite literally a chemo jacket, which I didn't even know existed. And then you put it under contract. And I guarantee you, he will never forget that. And even if it wasn't time to sell right in that moment, which it wasn't, and 2 or 3 months later is not a long time, but the fact of the matter is he called you, he didn't forget you. And all of these texts and emails and mailers and crazy stuff I have, people beating down my door, it feels like daily asking me to buy one of my mobile home parks. Not very many of them do something like provide a chemo jacket. That story is so powerful, Shawn. And I just want to say, like, Dude, bravo, man. Publicly. This is going on YouTube as well. That was outstanding. So everybody listening in, Shawn had all the excuses in the world and he fought through it. So I cannot compliment you enough for that. But let's take a little bit of a pivot. So another big area of sacrifice. So obviously we hit one area of sacrifice, which is if you want to keep your job, you're not going to get full-time in mobile home parks anytime soon. You're just not. You're just not. It's not how life works unless you have lots and lots and lots of money and you can hire a big staff and things and stuff, which you didn't and I didn't, which is fine.
Yeah.
That's a big sacrifice you had to make. Another big sacrifice you had to make, obviously, was on the cold calling bit, which we just talked about. But another big area of sacrifice you had to make was partnering. Because when you partner with someone, you give up equity. Let's spend some time talking about, because I hear this all the time, like, oh, I want to buy a mobile home park, but I want it to be mine. And I don't have the capital, so I go take out a hard money loan. And like, I hear that all the time. And what I will say is, I've seen people do it and it work. And I've seen people do that and that be the dumbest thing they've ever done. So one sacrifice that you decided to make was, again, giving up equity to partner with others. Tell me everything. How did you logic your way into that? Kind of how does it feel having to give up some equity, but what do you get in giving up that equity?
Sure. I mean, like I mentioned to you earlier, I could have maybe done it myself. I could have talked to thousands of more investors over the course of the last couple of years, but I felt like the most important thing was to find like the right person to either partner with or the right team to be around. So for me, I could have talked to thousands of people, had all this money lined up, but like no deal or anything to show for it. So that seemed like kind of a waste of money. So I do a little bit of both. I would talk to some investors, friends, family members, but I talked to a lot of people that were operators out there and just try to get to know them a little bit as people, what they were in, like what they were getting into, what they look for in parks, have they partnered with other people before, just to see who could potentially be the right fit. So for me, like I said, I listen to a ton of podcasts. So would I rather have 100% of nothing or 50% or 10% or 5% of something, right? So for me, equity really didn't really matter, right? So as long as I'm a pretty fair person, as long as the person or team I was partnering with was fair, I have no issues kind of partnering with them and kind of learning and growing together. So for me, I didn't have a ton of friends and family with millions and millions of dollars of equity just sitting in the bank ready to deploy somewhere. So for me, I was going to have to partner and find a piece for that. And also just someone who has a ton of experience in the industry. So for me, I partnered with Julio Jaramillo out of Evergreen. So he has 25, 30 years of experience, a couple dozen mobile home and RV parks, runs great parks, has a great team who I've met either in person, on site, talked to over the phone. So just really great relationships with a lot of his folks too. So, with that, not only do I get to come into the industry as a brand new person, but you get experience and exposure to people that are part of the mortgage, vendors, mobile homes, builders, suppliers, investors, brokers that are out there, and you just have almost instant credibility. So now I have at least one park under my belt, looking for others to, buy, manage, operate, and partner with them all.
Julio is awesome. By the way, and
yes.
if you're listening to this, Julio, I need to get you on this podcast very badly. He is a sage amongst sages. He is so smart and kind, and he's done things the right way. He's a phenomenal guy. We invited him to speak at Seco a couple years back. Great dude. Cannot say enough good things about him. I am on still your little dashboard here for a mentorship program, and your year 2 goal was 100 lots. And why don't you share how many lots are you up to right now? Keep in mind, you started with me on August 4th, 2020. So it's been a little over 2 years. How many lots are you at?
87.
You're almost there, Shawn.
Almost.
You're about a month, because you said you closed in September, right? Yeah, so you are 2 years and about a month to get almost there, and I will publicly tell you your year 5 goal is 500 lots. So You wanted to come on the podcast, man. Now your goal is public.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm talking with some other owners, operators across the Mid-Atlantic. I think 500 is achievable in 5 years. I just need to find, one good park per year. I don't need to buy everything. So as long as I can find one good park that's pretty reasonably priced, good tenant base, good area, definitely achievable.
It's definitely achievable. And like the post I just made on Facebook and on LinkedIn, it definitely is not linear. It's more parabolic in growth. And I'm going to do a podcast episode about it eventually, but it just takes time to get the snowball rolling down the hill. And then when it does, it gets to the point where it can feel uncontrollable. So I have absolutely no doubt in my mind you're going to smash that goal. And honestly, even if you fall short, you're going to be in such a wonderful position. You will have met such wonderful people. If the goal for you personally and selfishly, Shawn, is to set your life up to kind of diversify your income in a way that you're going to fight to protect yourself in case something crazy out of your control happens, you're more than on the right path. So, Shawn, I absolutely love to hear it. Yeah, it's been an honor and a pleasure getting to know you over the last 2 years and change. You're a good friend. You're a good mobile home. You're about to be a really good mobile home park or operator. It's only been 2 months, so can't say for sure yet, but I trust you're going to do an amazing job. Shawn, dude, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being a part of my network and my friendship circle and everything, man. It's been really fun watching you grow.
Awesome. Ryan, thanks you so much for your help, mentorship throughout the years, not only during the 12-week program, but over the course of the last couple of years. If I had any questions, calls, texts, if you didn't answer immediately, you got me back to me almost like the same day. So appreciate all your help.
Like I say to most everyone I talk to, I want to see you win. And someone especially like you, Shawn, I wanted to see you win even more than most because I just really resonated with your story. And I'm so glad that you pushed me to get on here because a little backstory to this. Shawn declared to me he was coming on my podcast. He didn't ask me. He said, I'm coming on your podcast when I buy my first. And I was like, done. Deal. I will make you that deal. And he did it. So this is me making good on that deal. But Shawn's an awesome guy. For those listening in that want to connect with you, Shawn, how can they find you?
Sure. Email is probably the best one. So shawn.dwyer@goldenoakrei.com.
What I will do is I'll put that in the show notes for anyone listening in or watching it on YouTube. So that way it'll just be right there, copy and paste it and get in touch with him. Shawn, cannot thank you enough, dude. It's been so much fun watching you grow.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the help.
Entrepreneurs make mistakes, but with the overwhelming amount of free information out there, you don't have to be doomed to making those same mistakes. You just have to find a consolidated version of the most important information. What if I told you I'll gift you all of my DD mistakes I've made over the years for free? Just leave me a 5-star review, screenshot the review after it goes live, and email it to me at my website, archimedesgrp.com. Afterwards, join our Facebook group, Mobile Home Park Mastermind. You'll find hundreds of other mobile home park owners sharing ideas, contractors, and deals. It's free to join, and we would absolutely love having you join us.